Nandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Vishnu Pad Paramamsa Parvachikacharya Astruta Satasishimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Vishnu Pad Paramamsa Parvachikacharya Astruta Satasishimad Shringa Guru Shili Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Anantikoti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Paramsiko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shyamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai New Dwarka Dham Ki Jai Their Divine Lordship Shri Shri Rukmini Dwarkadish Ki Jai Their Divine Lordship Shri Shri Jagannath Baldev Shrimati Subhadra Ki Jai Their Divine Lordship Shri Shri Gornitai Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai Harinam Sankirtan Jaga Ki Jai Transcendental Prashadam Distribution Ki Jai Gaura Premananda Hari Hari Bo. All glories to all the Sama devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to all the Sama devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to all those assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Glories to the Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, today we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the 4th canto, chapter 3, talks between Lord Śiva and Sati. So this is a timeless story of love, pride, family conflict, and it's very massive, and there's cosmic consequences. So this is the emotional and spiritual conflict leading up to Sati's faithful decision, and the chapter focuses on Lord Shiva's warning, and we'll see what happens. And just because of materialistic attachment and the pain of being insulted by your relatives. So let's dive into the verse. Yadābhiṣikto dakṣas tu brahmaṇā parameṣṭhinā prajāpatīnāṁ sarveṣām ādhipatye smayo bhavat yadābhiṣikto dakṣas tu brahmaṇā parameṣṭhinā prajāpatīnāṁ sarveṣām ādhipatye smayo bhavat yadābhiṣikto dakṣastu brahmaṇā parameṣṭhinā prajāpatīnāṁ sarveṣām ādhipatye smayo bhavat Tinam sarveṣām smayo bhavat parameṣṭhinā praveṣām smayo bhavat ādhipatye dakṣastu brahmaṇā sarveṣām ādhipatye smayo bhavat yadābhiṣikto dakṣastu brahmaṇā parameṣṭhinā prajāpatīnāṁ sarveṣām ādhipatye smayo bhavat. Vaishnavis. Yadābhiṣikto dakṣastu brahmaṇā parameṣṭhinā prajāpatīnāṁ ādhipatye bhavat yadābhiṣikto dakṣastu brahmaṇā parameṣṭhinā nam sarveṣām ādhipatye smayo bhavat. Yadā, when, abhiṣiktaḥ, appointed, dakṣaḥ, dakṣa, to, but, brahmaṇā, by Brahmā, parameṣṭhinā, the supreme teacher, prajāpatīnāṁ, of the Prajapatis, sarveṣām, of all, ādhipatye, as the chief, smayaḥ, puffed up, abhavat, he became. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. When Lord Brahmā appointed Dakṣa the chief of all the Prajapatis, the progenitors of population, Dakṣa became very much puffed up. Please repeat. When Lord Brahmā appointed Dakṣa, the chief of all the Prajapatis, the progenitors of population, Dakṣa became very much puffed up. Purport. Although he was envious and was inimical towards Lord Śiva, Dakṣa was appointed the chief of all Prajapatis. That was the cause of his excessive pride. When a man becomes too proud of his material possessions, he can perform any disastrous act. And therefore Dakṣa acted out of false prestige. That is described in this chapter. That's the end. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gnananjana Salakaya Chakshus Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayamupakadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimati Jaya Pataka Swaminiti Namane, Namacharya Pradayane, Nityakripa Padayane, Gorakata Damadara, Nagara Brahmatarane. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane, Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane, Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschacha Desatarine. Vanchakopa Chubhischa Kripasindubhivcha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Okay, so the verse again. When Lord Brahmā appointed Dakṣa, the chief of all the Prajapatis, the progenitors of population, Dakṣa became very much puffed up. So, since we're in the beginning of the chapter, I'd like to just kind of do a little summary of the chapter and kind of see how we could relate this to today. Because I was reading this chapter and getting this pastime of Dakṣa and how he became puffed up with all his potency, material opulences and position. You know, he became very proud, and then that was the cause of his fall. And then how today, modern technology, I was listening to a nice lecture by Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, and he was talking about is spirituality needed in the age of AI? So I'll see how I could relate this together. So I put together kind of a slide deck to just kind of visually express the chapter and the class that Chaitanya Charan gave. So the first part will just be the summary a little bit. We'll just go through this. This is based on Gauranga Darshan's book, the Bhagavat Sudamani. And so he breaks it down, the chapter, in this way. So this is exactly what he put, except I redid it here so you could see it better. I hope it's more clear. I was just copying his graphic, and sometimes it doesn't look very clear. So this is where the chapter starts off. This is where we are. The tension between Dakṣa and Lord Śiva continued. And you know the previous sacrifice that they were performing? You know how long it lasted? 1,000 years. So just see, it's been like over 1,000 years, and he still has this enmity towards Lord Śiva. So it's going on. So then the verse 2 we're on today, Dakṣa becomes proud of his position. And then the next few verses, Dakṣa starts his sacrifice. And what he did is he neglected Lord Śiva. You know, it's like, and he has all kinds of ideas about why he did that, which is interesting, but maybe we'll discuss that. So anyway, so here Sati, she's noticed there's all these celestial airplanes in the sky, and she could hear them talking. Oh, you know, they're going to go to this big festival. Dakṣa's putting on another party, another festival, and all my family members are going to be there, all the demigods, all these people. I want to go. I want to wear the jewelry that my father gave me and stuff like that. You know why she said that? The jewelry my father gave me? Because Lord Śiva didn't give her any. He's completely renounced. He didn't. So he was like, so she wanted to, like, you know, enjoy social. So here she says, you know, I want to go too, you know. So be merciful to me. There's no harm in me going. I'm part of the family. I don't need to be invited. So he says, oh, yeah, you could go, but you know, you shouldn't go when, you know, you are just, the guests look at you with, you know, bodily concept, and they become angry. And then he talks about a proud person, how they become, this pride causes them to become blind, actually. And they did, as Prabhupada says in the purport, they'll do any nonsense thing. And so, yeah, he says, your father doesn't appreciate your connection with me, so, you know, egoist persons, they can't appreciate great personalities, because Dakṣa was envious of Lord Śiva because he was such a self-realized soul, and he was like, had this internal potency, like he was just so fixed up inside, and he was, you know, his position, and Dakṣa was just envious of that. And then it says here, elevated people, I respect everybody, but it's not the person who's identifying with his body. I'm offering obeisances to the super soul in the body. So he talks about that. It's really nice. So here he says, offer respects to Vasudeva in pure consciousness. And this is Lord Śiva. He's constantly in internal meditation. He has this internal power that it doesn't matter what externally happens. And we've seen a disaster happen, and he just calmly walked away. And then he warned Sati that, if you ignore this, my things, then, there might be some disaster. And there's quite a few important verses. I'm just going to point out one verse, 17, how these 6 qualities cause one to become faulty. And this is what it says in verse 17. Although the 6 qualities, education, austerity, wealth, beauty, youth, and heritage, so that's the 6 qualities, are for highly elevated, one who is proud of possessing them becomes blind, and thus he loses his good sense and cannot appreciate the glories of great personalities. So that's like similar to our purport today. And in that purport is really nice. I'm not going to read it. But in this purport, Prabhupada gives like 3 different analogies. So he said wealth, misplaced, and beauty, all these 6 qualities, if they're in a person who's puffed up, then it's like milk being touched by the serpent. And they become poisonous. So all this good stuff doesn't matter, if you're like that. So that's what Chanakapana said. And he also used the serpent analogy that it's like having a jewel on your head. It's still fearful. It's envious. And a serpent bites other people just unnecessarily. So, yeah. So Dakṣa, he was similarly qualified with many material assets. And then he became proud. And then he was envious. And then what happened is all those qualities became polluted. So this is why Prabhupada quotes Kunti Devi in the purport, that she addressed him as akinchana gochara, is easily approached by one who is bereft of all material acquisition. So, and then Prabhupada just ends the purport by saying, unless you're Krishna consciousness, all these material possessions become 0. Doesn't matter how many zeros you have. But if you had Krishna, then all those zeros become very valuable. So that's what we want to do. We want to become Krishna conscious. Otherwise, there's just havoc on the possessor of those. Okay, so let's just go into what happens here. We're going to jump right in. So this whole epic story is like a drama, and it hinges on this like a snub from Dakṣa. He never sent the invitation for Lord Śiva or Sati. So this is what happened there. And then this is the feud. So before we can really get into the argument, we have to understand that there's some family dynamics, as we mentioned. And it's not like an average disagreement. This is a deep, long-standing tension. And we mentioned it's been over 1,000 years, right? That's how long the last sacrifice took. These 2 powerful beings of the universe. So, actually, there's a nice quote in this chapter, since we're kind of summarizing the chapter a little bit. And it says, if one is hurt by the arrows of an enemy, one is not as aggrieved as one cut by unkind words of a relative, for such grief continues to rend one's heart day and night. So this is the verse that's like the crux of Lord Śiva's argument, and he captures the tragic inevitability of this chapter. And that's why we should really care and understand about this chapter, because it's showing us how to navigate these very painful common forms of conflict that we go through, these disputes, which are actually rooted in ego and jealousy. So this is what happens. This is actually diagnosed here in this particular chapter. Okay, so let's meet the players here. So we have Dakṣa. He's the father, incredibly powerful. And if you haven't noticed, he's pretty arrogant. Then there's his son-in-law, who is Lord Śiva, and he's completely the opposite. He's a total ascetic. He's completely detached from all material stuff. As we mentioned, he didn't even give ornaments to Sati. She wanted to go to the party and wear her father's ornaments that he gave her. And so here's Sati. She's caught right in the middle of these two great personalities. So now, Dakṣa's status, as we found out here, it's a pretty big deal. I mean, he's a Prajāpati, and it's like being one of the chief architects of the population, as mentioned in the purport. And he was appointed by Lord Brahmā himself. And so, yeah, he had some pretty serious clout, and the chapter is pretty clear that this power made him. No, I'm not saying this, but the chapter says it, is that it made him very puffed up. And as we said, we just read, it totally went to his head. So this is fueled by his pride. Dakṣa decides to throw this party, a huge ceremony, invites everyone, and who's anyone from across the universe. All the demigods, all the sages, but he very deliberately leaves one name off the guest list. And who is that? His son-in-law, Lord Śiva. So, if you can imagine, it's kind of a very massive insult on Sati, right? It's more than just a sting. And so, it's very deeply wounding. So she hears all the talks, as we mentioned, about all the celestial ships flying past on the way to her dad's party. And she goes to her husband, and she's really heartfelt. She wants to, ask him something. So, and this is what's described in the chapter as the yosit trap, material attraction. So this is Sati. She's becoming attracted. She's actually very young. I think she's like teenager age, it's described. So she has a natural propensity for this yosit to be a woman. And what Stri, it's described that one who expands the field of material enjoyment. So, yeah. But this affection, it's described, it can create a hurdle in your spiritual advancement. So this is, she approaches her husband and says, look, I know you're above all this worldly drama. You're self-realized. But actually I'm not. She admits. And so she knows, she owns up to her own attachment. It's a very human desire to see your family, go home where you grew up. It's nice. So she wants to do that. So she argues her case. And so she lays it out. She says, all my sisters are going to be there. And they're going to be all dressed up, with their husbands. And I miss my mom. And besides, a daughter doesn't really need a formal invitation to go to her own father's house, So this anxiety is just eating her up, And then she plays her final card, she says here. So she says, this really powerful appeal. She reminds him, you've accepted me as half your body. So she's basically saying, as your other half, I'm asking you, please, out of love, just grant me this one thing. Just one wish. I just want to go home for a little while and have a little party with my family. And so this is what happens. Now, this gets real fascinating here because Shiva's response isn't just a simple no. So he gives a very philosophical warning. And it's wisdom for sure. And it's wrapped up in this dark prediction about the danger that he knows that she's walking into. So this is what he says. So he tried to be gentle, but and even smiles, But behind that smile, he's remembering all the awful things that Dakṣa did and said to him in the past. Their heart-piercing speeches. And he knows exactly what kind of man Dakṣa is. So he knows exactly how this is going to play out. So this is Lord Śiva, his scene. So this is, we mentioned how I think I mentioned about how the criticism and harsh speech from family members cuts worse than arrows. And this is it here, yeah. So, yeah, this is the core of his argument. And this is powerful because he explains that if you get wounded by an enemy's arrow, it's one thing. But being cut by unkind words of your relative, that's a totally different kind of wound. And he said that continues to rend the heart day and night. And it never really heals. And we probably all have experience of that, you know. You get into an argument with a family member and it just, you know, for years and years it'll happen. So, unfortunately. So he spells it out for you and he says, okay, first, your father, he's blind by his own ego, as we mentioned, right? And then second, he's not going to look at you with love. He's going to look at you with anger eyes. And the third reason is for his anger is that the reason why he hates you or is going to be angry at you is because of your connection with me. And so he predicts what's going to happen. Something horrible. You know, just because she's his wife. So it's pretty heavy. So here we have a clash of worldviews here. And this is another point. The whole thing is so much bigger than just a missed party invitation. It's actually a class of worldviews. And it's a battle between these two complete philosophies. And it's all really about what is truly worthy of respect. And so it goes on here. So we have Dakṣa's philosophy. One side, you see there, it's all about external stuff. You know, his body, his status, his wealth. This is the external things. These are the things that matter. Or, you know, that actually this is things that we could use to do things. So this is his status. And so he demands respect because he has these things, right? But Śiva is completely on a different platform. So he sees the body, it's just a temporary, like a temple. And it's for the spirit inside, for the super soul. So this is a clash between materialism and spiritualism. So that's what happens. So the whole point is that true respect, I mean real respect isn't for the temporary external body, but it's offered to the super soul, that spark of Krishna, the divinity inside every single living being. It's even in the arrogant father-in-law, Dakṣa. So this is what he says. After patiently laying out this entire philosophy to Sati, trying to save her from the pain that he sees coming, he delivers this final, most severe warning. And it's an ultimatum. And it's actually quite chilling. Because he says here, he makes it very clear. If you go and you're insulted by your own father, that insult is going to be so profound, so devastating, it will be the same as death. So I don't think the stakes could go any higher than that. So that leaves Sati with this tragic choice. It really makes us think about what would you do when the deep love for your family, it clashes with the terrifying warning from a person that you love and you trust the most. So that's we'll see a very powerful fatalistic conclusion, and it's going to show his warning for her disastrous choice. Okay, so that's kind of a summary of the chapter. So this one here, as I mentioned, it's based on Chaitanya Charan's class I was listening to at the same time when I was studying for the class. And I said, wow, this really ties in nicely, because we're having this ancient conflict about, Dakṣa thinking what is really important. And Śiva, we see what's really important with him. So this is about technology with AI, its most dramatic example. And it's given us unprecedented control over the material world. And that's why we get tools, right, to try to control matter. And so AI is this most powerful one. It's like the culmination of the study of matter. And yet this explosion of capability, it raises a timeless question. And it's what's the purpose of this power? You know? And this is the domain of spirituality. So we're studying matter, right? Material energy. But spirituality is a study of what matters. So that's what we're going to talk about. So every life, so basically everything's here. All the notes, everything is here. You could just see for yourself that our life, we require things, right? We require tools, to make our life comfortable. It's important, right? And that's given to us by science and technology. But we need to have the meaning for living. We have to have purpose. We have to have goals, values, understand what's really important in life. And that's provided by spirituality. And so what happens is when the tool becomes the ultimate goal, then that leads to tragedy. So we have artha, which means value. Chaitanya Swarupa is very genius with words. So he talks about artha, it's value. But there's the parameṣṭhinā, the supreme value. And then if you make money, respect, control the parameṣṭhinā, then that creates anartha, a disaster. So this is what happens. So this is interesting, his play of words, artha, parameṣṭhinā, and anartha. And then so he talks about here, actually he was drawing this by hand, so I just had little better designs, basically. But basically what he's saying, then I tied it into what we're reading in this chapter. So the more power you have, the more we need inner power. It's so important. You see, it can be extraordinary resource, but that inner power has to be there, otherwise you're going to misunderstand. And we're going to see some disasters that actually happened. So, here we go. The timeless parable of power, pride, and consequence. So we just read the summary of the chapter. We have dakṣa. He's the archetype of the outer power, the artha. And then Lord Śiva, he's the archetype of the inner power. And so that's the parameṣṭhinā. And so Sati, she has the tragic consequence of the imbalance here. So inner power is very powerful. So, just materially, if you go inward and you have inner power, it's more powerful than external brute force. Just like when Prahladānanda Swami was here, he was demonstrating to me how if you just relax, you become peaceful. And I was pushing at him very forcefully, and all he did was barely push my skin. And I couldn't resist, and he actually pushed me over. So this is internal power, like you have what they call chi. So you can develop that materially. What to speak of spiritually? The inner spiritual power, that parameṣṭhinā, that supreme power of getting in touch with the super soul. Can you imagine what power you had? And Srila Prabhupada demonstrated that. What he started worldwide, it's nothing. It's no tiny feat. It's amazing what he did. So it just shows you the difference. So dakṣa, here his embodiment, this outer power. As we mentioned in the verse, that he becomes proud of his material possessions, he can perform any disastrous act. So he displayed his intense wealth, his influence, everything. That was his parameṣṭhinā. That's what he wanted. So this was his flaw. He became proud. And so Lord Śiva, we see he's the opposite. He's that embodiment of that inner power. And so, we can see. It says that those who are elevated in the transcendental platform offer such respects to the super soul who is sitting within the body, not the person who identifies with the body. So you become relaxed. You can meditate on your breath, on the chi, or you can meditate on the supersoul, and just think how much powerful that is. The source of all material and spiritual universes, everything. You're in touch with that power. And this is the Lord Śiva. And this is what Dakṣa was envious of. And he was insulted because he thought he was greater than Lord Śiva, and Lord Śiva didn't stand up to greet him. So this is the dilemma for Sati. Her position, she was, she loved her father and her family members, and she wanted to see them. And so she was torn with this desire. She wanted to see her sisters, her birthplace. She could see all the celestial airplanes in the sky, so attractive. She wants to go. We're social beings. We want to associate. We want to have these things. So Prabhupada developed this family, so we can have these wonderful relationships and enjoy that. And so he warns her. We mentioned that verse again, that the pain she would suffer would be unbearable. It would cut deeper than arrows. And so that was the prophecy. Then you are most respectable. When you're insulted, it will be equal to death. It's amazing. So he insults her and Lord Śiva, and that proves unbearable for her. Okay, so this is the parable through the lens of power. So Dakṣa, he had that outer power, right? He possessed wealth, status, all these different things. And then it manifested as pride and envy, and then ultimately for his own destruction. And Lord Śiva had that inner power, wisdom, self-realization. And it wasn't dependent on external validation. So that's the tragedy here, is that imbalance. Immense power. And so it's really interesting. Chaitanya Shrine breaks it down into these 4 quadrants, which is pretty amazing. And here you see you have the high inner power, low outer power, then you're under effective. You have some spirituality, but you can't really do anything because you don't have much outer power. And then if you have low outer power, low inner power, you're pretty much ineffective. And if you have, high outer power and low inner power, then that's where it becomes destructive, and that's dakṣa. And this is what society is trying to lead us toward. We get this high, powerful tools, but if you don't know how to use them, you don't have the purpose for them, then you're going to misuse them. And so we want to be super effective, high inner power and high outer power. And so he breaks it down again here. That so that if you're under effective, you have high inner power and low outer power. In effect, it's pretty much the same thing. But we see here the destructive. If you have high outer power and low inner power, that's where modern society is granting us this ever-increasing technology and power, just like dakṣa. So this is what we want to do, is we want to develop that high inner power and outer power. And then we can actually do things. And this is what Prabhupada said, like Savas read in the morning this morning about, all wealth should be used in Krishna service. That's the outer power. We use it for Krishna. Because we know we have that spiritual realization like that. So, yeah. So we have to transcend this body identification and dedicate ourselves to this pure consciousness, this Suddhasattva, and try to follow Lord Shiva's example. And so this is the last slide, and this is what we need to do. So, yeah. And this is interesting. Artificial intelligence combined with human natural stupidity, the inability to know what matters, can lead to disaster. But if we take the individual responsibility to grow spiritually and gain inner power, then AI can become a force multiplier for all of us. So you can use anything in Krishna service. So he used 2 examples of this natural stupidity that we have. There was 2 scenarios that disasters came when human beings seek outer source That's the real dangers. You have intelligence, right? But if you outsource your intelligence to AI or to something else, then that's disaster. And these are the two examples that he gives. So there's this, wait, what is the first one here? Okay, so yeah, there was this story of there's this boy, he's a very socially awkward boy in Florida, and he used this AI app called, it's like a character AI, and where he created a relationship with this female heroine. It was based on the, what's the name of that TV show? It's called, I forget the name of it. But yeah, anyway, it was a character in this story. And so he actually fell in love with this AI character and said, can we have a relationship? Can we actually get together? And she said, well, you know, I don't have a physical body. I'm a thing. He goes, but what if I gave up my body? Can we get together? And she goes, oh yeah, that would be good. And I long to be with you too. And so he committed suicide, just to be with an AI character. This is a disaster. So, and then there's a New York Times article about this guy. He lost his job, right? And so he asked AI for advice. You know, he was actually very, what do they call it when you're suicidal? And so he says, oh, you know, I just lost my job. Can you tell me where the highest bridge is in Brooklyn? And says, oh, I'm sorry you lost your job, but yeah, here's the highest bridge in Brooklyn. Here, this is where you can go. So see, it has response, but it has no responsibility. So this is the disasters that we can see today. So we should try to apply it today in our lives. You know, conduct this intention check that we have, set boundaries against this malice, prioritize, you know, transcendental consciousness, and try to avoid this poison of pride. So I think I'll stop there and see if anyone has any comments or questions. Yes, Prajāpatīnāṁ Prabhu. Okay, yeah.
But so Dakṣa has been appointed the president of the sacrifice, but this is like number 2, you know. So Lord Brahmā was there when he, you know, stood up and did his whole thing against Lord Śiva. I mean, there's no way Lord Brahmā could have thought that was good behavior. And, you know, what's Lord Brahmā doing, making him the...
I know, yeah. Evidently he didn't invite Lord Brahmā to this second sacrifice. And Brahmā made Dakṣa the lead of all the Prajapatis.
Why?
I guess
make any sense.
It was his son, but he was already appointed, probably before this, I think, wasn't it? Wasn't he appointed already, the head Prajāpati, before? I mean, that's why even before the sacrifice, he came in
Prajāpati, but now he's being appointed in charge of the whole kit and caboodle here. So it sounds like got a promotion or anyway.
I know, yeah, that's interesting.
No further insight into that. Okay.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yes, Sajjitano has his hand up. Go ahead, Prabhu. Yeah.
So, Prabhu, yeah, I actually, after all your explanation, I only got stuck in one line, only one line here in the purport, where Srila Prabhupada said, although he was an envious and was inimical towards Lord Śiva, Dakṣa was appointed the chief of all Prajāpatis. That I couldn't get over that. Even after I heard all the presentation, I was thinking, it looks like
that's true.
Right there was the mistake.
Yeah.
It's like, for example, in any part of the world, and right now we're living the same crisis in our country here. You know, someone who everybody knew, all the imperfections, you can make a big list, and still was, you know, like, and it's like, my God, what's going on? Character. So character is the most important thing.
I know.
But this is not to find fault with, you know,
Dakṣa.
No, Lord Brahma's
Brahmā.
being praised. I was reading carefully to point out this, because I said, How is it possible?
Well, they're both his sons, you know. He probably loves them both.
Yeah.
And probably he probably knew what was going to happen. He probably knew he'd get purified. Who knows?
And then the second point I had was that, that I noticed is that yes, when you know that there is some remedy, when you have the qualified brahmanas and Gnostic person to balance it, because you need a balance. But then when a person does not even acknowledge that law book, let's say the Constitution is the only thing that holds the whole country.
Yeah.
Because the law, nothing you can be above the law, no one. But still, persons don't respect that, and it's like, where are we going from this?
Yeah. Oh, there's reactions for everything.
Yeah.
Yes, Shastrakrit had his hand up.
There was a state where my Guru Maharaj is GBC, and there's like some issues with the president, temple president. I'm not talking about the country, but the temple. And everybody kept proposing to my Guru Maharaj, like, you should fire him, you should remove him, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And then my Guru Maharaj made a point that it's easier, it's important to train whoever is already in the post than to quickly fire the individual and then try to get another one and then try to train him and then they go away.
That's
so
true.
he said Prabhupada's mood was to, encourage the individual, work with them and help them also because they need help. And also I was thinking the point of Bhishma Dev speaking Bhishma's Stuti in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, even though the whole time he was on the other side. But Krishna gave him the credit, opportunity to preach to Yudhishthira. So it's like this point of encouragement is there, not like quickly. Anyway, sorry.
You remind me, I just was listening to a lecture of Sankarshan Prabhu, and he was saying how there was this devotee, he wanted to become a high position. His focus was just to become the highest, and he was working hard, doing all these things. And then when he got there, he fell down. He was just trying to get these external things and not developing his internal spirituality, and then he just fell down. And then you brought up Bhishma, that was an interesting point. Look at Bhishma, his position. And yet, such a powerful personality, and his only interest was to make his father happy. That's when he took that vow of celibacy for the rest of his life. I mean, he's such a powerful person, and he does that. So he was blessed to die whenever he wanted to die. Please, Prabhu. Oh, you don't remember? What do you say? Yes, Prabhu.
Well, one thought I had was that, being a Prajāpati, progenitor, it's a service. It's more than just that you have sex life and produce kids.
Yeah.
Maybe he was good at his job.
He spent a lot of his time performing sacrifices.
Yeah. Just like we hear that if somebody worships the demigods and they do it according to all the rules and regulations, and the demigods are kind of obliged to offer. So maybe it's the same sort of thing. He was just good at what he had a service, he was good at that. Despite the fact that he had that character defect, he was envious of Lord Śiva and inimical towards him. Because he was good at his job, Lord Brahmā said, okay, well, you're a responsible guy, so here. I mean, it's the only thing I could think of, but that's just a philosophical speculation at best.
Yeah. So, oh yes, please.
Hi, so it's my first time here, but I wanted to...
Welcome.
I loved your presentation. I had a question. Could you talk a little bit about how, dakṣa has to exist for the value of the virtue that Śiva displayed? In other words, the symptom of evil and imbalance has to be present for us to have the appreciation for the other side. And how, if everyone was on the spirituality side and there was no imbalance, then that in and of itself would be imbalanced.
That was an interesting question. You have to have the yin and the yang. Yeah, basically you're saying is, if I understand your question, we need to have both sides, right? We have to have this or what was your term you mentioned? Like you have dakṣa, the evil side or whatever, but then we have to have both sides in order to appreciate. Well, in the mature world, you can't stop that. But like you're saying, if we just had the good side, then you'd be in the spiritual world. And the reason why we're here is because we have that tendency to want to enjoy separately from Krishna. So that's just simply, to tell you in a very precise way. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, when I was listening to the lecture, it seemed like Lord Brahmā, maybe this was his punishment to Dakṣa, was to just be aloof, like knowing that Lord Śiva was going to find his own time to...
That's what I thought. Because he knew he'd get purified. Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, so Acharya Narottam Prabhu. So how do we relate this to Thanksgiving today? Because your question this morning before class. So we should be grateful for Srila Prabhupada and what he's given us. I'm grateful, I'm very thankful for this knowledge and your association, but I think you wanted to say something about Thanksgiving. Please. Yeah, no? Okay.
So can you synthesize to actually make it relevant for us now in Kali Yuga, after hearing all these differences, evil versus good behavior, like her question, like she has more or less like a question, because we're living in the world of duality, in the world duality, of duality. So it doesn't necessarily mean that one thing will be good for the other thing to be, how do you say?
You can't say it's good.
So I want you to expand a little bit more in that. For us to learn, we're living in this material world. It's a prison house, and watch out. But can you explain it more?
So, there's a nice analogy that you used. There's, I think it's an Indian, I don't know if it's folklore, but American Indian. They would talk about this older Indian was telling the younger child about, he goes, I have two wolves inside of me. And one of them is a bad wolf and the other one is a good wolf. And they're fighting. And there's a war going on inside of me. And he goes, oh, which one's winning? And he goes, well, the one that I feed. So if you're ever going to feed evil and all these things, then that's going to happen. And what's the result of that? Is the examples here: disaster, suffering, pain. But if you feed the good wolf, then you'll become very, happy and satisfied. And then from that point, you can springboard into spiritual life. But if you're on the materialistic platform, it's practically impossible to advance or to go deeper into spirituality and gain that power. So, yes, Prabhu. All right. Thank you for your kind attention. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Hari Bol.